Okay, so today we're going to quickly look at hash time lock contracts, or the analogy I like to use is imagining a box of two locks stuck in a wall. So our particular scenario is that Alice has got some Bitcoin and she's going to buy physical product from Bob, who's going to give her that in return. So the way they're going to execute this trade is using a hash time lock contract to provide an escrow service. So what does that mean? All right, so let's start with our first part of our paradigm here, which is to look at a box. So what's the box? Well, quite simply, the box is somewhere that Alice can pop her Bitcoin in an escrow contract so that it's available to Bob. What she's really doing there is saying, like, here's some Bitcoin, I'll send it to this contract, and then the output of that contract when it's executed is that an output belonging to Bob gets this Bitcoin. Okay, so the next piece of our little analogy is to look at the two locks. So two locks would imply two doors. So what we're going to suggest is that if we imagine our box with a door on each side of it, and then on each side of that door, we've got a lock for each one. Now on Alice's side of the box, the lock is based on time. And on Bob's side of the box, he's got a little combination lock, which is really, if he understands the combination and the set of numbers, he can get in the box and he can get out the Bitcoin. So what's actually happening here is that as Alice puts the Bitcoin in the box, she locks her side of the box for a particular amount of time. Let's say that's 2 to 3 hours. Now, in actual fact, that's going to be determined by a block height in the Bitcoin blockchain, at which point her side of the box will open and Alice will be able to retrieve the Bitcoin from that box. Now, the escrow service works because if prior to that time, Alice provides a code to Bob, he'll be able to open up the box from his side and then retrieve the Bitcoin from there. Now, the reason that Bob is going to get that code is because Alice is going to allow him to do it. So the final part of our analogy here is to look at, okay, now imagine this box has been built into a brick wall. Bob and Alice can't easily get around. So what you've got is now Bob and Alice are separated. One side of the box is actually only available to Alice, the other side of the box is only available to Bob. Now this is done by ensuring that the Bitcoin contract will only pay out in a specific direction. So if I'm Alice and I put the time lock on the contract, then at the expiration of block height XYZ, the output of that transaction will only be redeemable by the private key belonging to Alice. Alternatively, if a particular hash code is registered and provided to this contract, then the output of that contract will actually then only be payable to Bob. Now the reason this is a bit like a wall is it's because, let's say 2 to 3 hours elapses, the box opens, Bob can't actually get over to that side of the wall and retain the Bitcoin. So it gives us a safe place to put the Bitcoin for a couple of hours and then gives us a simple mechanism allowing Bob to open that. So the way the transaction would now take place is that Alice would place the Bitcoin into the box, lock the box with the time lock the box with a hash lock, and then tell Bob, look, you can go and have a look at the box, you can inspect it, it's all there, it's all open source, it's all available for you. You can see everything that's registered in that box. Bob says, yep, I can see that there's a lock here, I can see that there's a time, I've got 2 hours to complete this transaction, I can see you've done your part of the transaction, I can see that you've placed some trust in that, okay, I'll give you the box if you give me the code. So at the same time that Bob places the box over the wall to Alice, Alice can then tell him the code and retrieve the box. Now Bob now has until the expiration of the time lock to just unlock this and ensure that he gets hold of that Bitcoin. So what he does is he provides the code into the contract and the Bitcoin output now is retrieved and sent to Bob. Excellent, nice and easy. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is when we start to look at that from a Lightning point of view, is this idea of what you can do with 2 of these boxes in the same wall. So now what we're going to say is we've got a second box on this side. On this box, we're going to make this side also a time lock, and this side is also a hash lock. Now what you can do is from Alice, let's say Alice wants some Bitcoin, but instead of getting a physical box back from Bob, she's got, let's go full lightning. So she wants some lightning capacity from Bob. So Bob can effectively place a digital asset inside his own hash time lock contract over here. And the way that the lock actually works is this is based on a particular pre-image. So the idea is I would have a string of characters and numbers, and then when I hash that, it creates a hash. To unlock the hash lock, what I need to do is provide the original string of characters and letters so that we can then recreate the hash and use it to open the blockchain. The way that's done is that as the hash is broadcast to the Bitcoin blockchain to retrieve the Bitcoin here, or the Lightning here, to open either of these locks, then that becomes public knowledge, which allows the other person to then open the corresponding box at the same time. So what that would mean is that Alice would provide Bitcoin into box 1, setting a time lock and a hash lock. And the hash lock is based on a secret A. And Bob would get the hash function that he needs to recreate. He just doesn't know the secret that's used to create that hash. Bob then says, okay, I'll provide my part of the deal, which is a little bit of lightning in this second contract up here, and I'll do the same thing. So let's say there's 4 hours on this contract. I'll put 2 hours on mine, so we've got time for all of this to rectify, and I'll lock that in here, and I'll provide the same hash with secret that's unlocked by secret A. So when Alice comes along, she says, okay, well, this is the trade that I expected. I can see that I've placed this much Bitcoin in here, and I can see Bob's placed the correct amount of Lightning in here. All I need to do to finalize this trade is just to say what secret A is. So I take secret A, I broadcast that to the blockchain, and out comes the Lightning. Now what happens with Bob is he's got some software over here that's looking at the blockchain, and he sees secret A pop up on there, and then he uses that to unlock the Bitcoin, which now comes out to Bob. Nice and easy. Hopefully that will make sense. Quite new to drawing these videos and talking over them in real time, so they might be a little bit rough and ready, and I think I'll come back at a later date and redo them. But for now, I'm just keen to see if these are useful. Okay, cheers. Bye bye.